So let's discuss FLL Lesson 72. So we're going to be talking a little bit about comma splices and run-on sentences, and those make sense by the end of it. Okay, let's talk first about the definition of a sentence. So a sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. Okay, say that again to yourself. So some groups of words are just pieces of sentences. These pieces of sentences are called fragments. We first learned about fragments in the beginning of the book. Fragments do not make sentences by themselves. You need to add words like a subject or a verb to make a sentence that expresses a complete thought. So let's look at exercise 1, and it has some fragments, and we're going to see what it's missing. The first one is the possum. Yes, that's how you spell possum, with an O. The possum. It needs something. That's just a subject, isn't it? So it needs a verb. The possum ate, slept. It needs a verb. Pretended it was dead. It needs a verb. Next one, soaked the garden. That's just a verb. Soaked the garden in a direct object, but no subject that's doing the soaking. So it needs a subject. The rain soaked the garden. Next one is was tired. That again, that's a verb and a predicate adjective, but we need a subject. Tom was tired. Tom would be a good subject. Next one is the giant squid. That one needs a verb, right? It's just a subject. The giant squid lurks under the sea. Give it a thing. So now let's think about conjunctions. So let's see the definition of a conjunction. A conjunction is a word that joins words or groups of words together. The most common are and, but, and or. So in the last lesson we reviewed conjunctions, and they can join two subjects to make a compound subject, just more than one subject. And they can also join verbs to make a compound predicate. Okay, so a compound sentence has two smaller sentences that are joined together by a comma and a conjunction to make one longer sentence. So exercise 2 has compound sentences, and let's look at them. I am an engineer, but I would like to be an astronaut. Go ahead and circle the comma and the conjunction together. And let's look at how it can be two separate sentences. First of all, I am an engineer could be one sentence, and I would like to be an astronaut could be another. But we added a comma and a conjunction to make them one longer sentence. But it's still grammatically correct. So you need a comma and a conjunction, and it's called a compound sentence. Remember, compound just means more than one. I will sing a song, or I will dance. Those could be two separate sentences on their own, but circle the comma and the conjunction to show that they're smushed together. Terry can hide, comma, and you can find him. Could be two separate sentences, but instead it's a compound sentence. Circle the comma and the conjunction. Have you ever heard the word splice? It means to join ends together. You can splice two pieces of rope by weaving together the frayed strands at the end of both pieces. You can splice two wooden boards by overlapping the ends and bolting them together. You can splice lots of different things. It means joining ends together. So in compound sentences, like the ones you just read in exercise 2, the two smaller sentences are spliced together with a comma and a conjunction. This is a strong splice. If you just used a comma and left out the conjunction, the splice would be too weak to hold the sentences together properly. This weak, improper splice is called a comma splice. Let's look at exercise 3. These have comma slices. After you read each sentence, draw a line through it to show that it is incorrect. I am your brother, you are my sister. There's no conjunction here, but they put a comma. It's not enough, so let's scratch it out. We walked to the store, comma, we bought our groceries there. No conjunction, scratch it. Beauty is fleeting, comma, wisdom endures. No conjunction, cross it out. You need a comma and a conjunction to hold together two smaller sentences. A comma is not enough. Sometimes a writer forgets to put anything at all between two sentences. That's called a run-on sentence. Two sentences just run together. They aren't properly joined by a comma and a conjunction. Let's look at exercise 4. These are run-on sentences. Edward Lear was a book illustrator. He wrote nonsense poetry in his spare time. Okay, those are two sentences, but they have nothing to join them together, so scratch it out. It's a run-on. He came from a family with 21 children. He was the youngest. Nope, run-on sentence. Scratch it out. And he was very industrious. He worked constantly. No comma and conjunction, no good. Scratch it. Those run-on sentences needed a comma and a conjunction, or needed a stronger punctuation mark, the semicolon. A semicolon can properly join two smaller sentences into a compound sentence without needing any help from a conjunction. So let's look at exercise 5, and we're going to circle the semicolon. A semicolon looks like this. Okay? So we're going to circle it when we see it in exercise 5. I collect shells, semicolon. You collect sea glass. Here we combine two sentences without a conjunction, and it is okay because there's a semicolon. So circle the semicolon. Okay. Dark clouds gathered, semicolon. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Circle your semicolon. It combines our two sentences. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat meat. Circle your semicolon. Now, here's your task. In exercise 6, you need to read each sentence. Then you need to decide, is it a fragment? So is it missing a part? Like it should have a subject and it doesn't, or it should have a verb and it doesn't. So if it's a fragment, it'll be missing a piece. Is it a sentence with a comma splice? So remember, that's when you put a comma between two smaller sentences but no conjunction. Is it a run-on sentence? So two sentences pushed together with no comma and no conjunction. Or is it a compound sentence? So everything's done correct. It's two smaller sentences, but they're added together with a comma and a conjunction. So if it's a fragment, on the line beside it, write F. If it's a comma splice, on the line beside it, write CS. If it's a run-on sentence, write RO. And if it's correct, so a correct compound sentence, write C. So read through these sentences in exercise 6 and try to figure out if they are correct, a fragment, or comma splice, run-on, all those good things. So pause me, because I'm going to go on and read through those sentences and figure it out. Okay, exercise 7. We're going to diagram some compound sentences. These, since it's two smaller sentences pushed together, are two smaller diagrams joined together by a dotted line. The conjunction is written on top of that dotted line. because it's what's joining the sentences together. So let's look at the first one in exercise 7, which I believe is already diagrammed for you. The bobcat chased the rabbit, but the rabbit escaped into its burrow. So here we have two smaller sentences combined to make a compound sentence with a comma and a conjunction. Let's look at our first one. The bobcat chased the rabbit. First things first, find your verb, chased. Who's doing the chasing? Bobcat. What did they chase? The rabbit. Then we have our next sentence. The rabbit escaped into its burrow. What's our verb? Escaped. Who escaped? Rabbit. And then we have preposition, right? Into what? Into burrow. What? Whose burrow? Its burrow. All right. So now let's look at the second one. This one is similar to the last one. It's a compound sentence, but instead of a comma and a conjunction, just have a semicolon. So the bobcat slunk away, semicolon. The rabbit rested comfortably. So instead of the conjunction written on that dotted line, you will actually draw out a semicolon. Okay. I'm going to set you loose on exercise 8. If you need help, ask a parent for help. Looks like there's quite a few of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel free to ask a parent for help. Just take it one sentence at a time. And by that I mean, if it's a compound sentence, so that's two smaller sentences joined together, just look at the first part of the sentence before the comma and the conjunction, and then look at the second. So you can go ahead and try those on your own. Pause me, because I'm going to move on, but if you have any questions, ask a parent. All right, last things last. Today we're going to learn one last proofreader's mark. So let's look at exercise 9. We're going to be talking about how to insert a semicolon. So there's a semicolon with an arrowhead underneath it. When you see that mark, you should insert a semicolon. So let's look at that example. Echidnas, I don't know how to say that, have no teeth. Their sticky tongues lap up ants. I don't know what that animal is. Okay. But notice, that's a run-on sentence. So you either need a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon. Here we're learning how to insert semicolons. So we should insert a semicolon between teeth and there. So notice you just draw the little caret and the semicolon above it. So go ahead in exercise 10, use your proofreader marks to correct those sentences. I'll give you some hints. So there's 3 different lines. The first one, I asked my brother, do you know what a metronome is? He didn't know the answer. In that very line, you need to insert a comma, quotation marks, 2 sets, open and close. You're going to need to capitalize one thing, and you're going to need 1 apostrophe and a punctuation mark. On line 2, I explained that a metronome is a kind of mammal that lays eggs. A monotrim, not a metronome. I explained that a monotrim is a kind of mammal that lays eggs. And echidna is a, so just that line. You're going to need to just lowercase something. So this last bit, monotrim, a platypus is also a monotrim. That one you're going to need a semicolon and to lowercase something. And that's your hint. Go at it. It's all yours. Have a wonderful day.